you are standing in the wings and the voice in your head says something sharp, something really critical, unpleasant, something that sounds, if you listen carefully, a little like someone you once knew. And that someone could be your teacher, a conductor, a director from years ago. It could be even your parent. But it's usually someone whose opinion mattered enormously at that time. If you recognize this, if you have had this experience or you often have this experience, this video might be for you. I'm Dr. Maja Jankowska, clinical and counseling psychologist and founder of Beyond the Spotlight Psychology, where I work clinically with a lot of performing artists, but I also deliver trainings, masterclasses, workshops, courses, and so on. So if you are interested in this, check out my website. Anyway, today I want to talk about something I hear from performing artists across all the disciplines and all levels of experience, and it is about the inner critic that does not feel entirely their own. I'll give you an example. Recently, I worked with a professional dancer, and she told me about a moment when she was just 14 years old. She performed in a show and she had a solo part, and after that she was called to the teacher's office, and the teacher told her how disappointed she was, how much more she had expected from her, and how much better she performed in the rehearsals, and also that she didn't expect the other person to perform better than she did, right? Of course, the dancer knew in a part of herself that the performance had not been her best. We all know when we are not at our best. She had danced better in the rehearsal, yes, it's true. She was aware of this. But she was 14, and the pressure was immense. Hearing from her teacher that he was disappointed in her was crushing. She described feeling disgusted with herself, and the image of that moment was very specific. She could see it very vividly, like she was in that teacher's office room, and she could still hear the tone of the voice. So this is the type of memory, a trauma memory, that we can process using EMDR, and that's what we did. And what struck me working with her was how much of her inner critic had been shaped by that one encounter, one conversation, one adult's disappointment, expressed without any apparent awareness of the impact it would have on her life and her career. And it had been running quietly in the background of her performing life ever since. These moments can really, truly be formative. In most training environments for performing artists, feedback obviously is very frequent, sometimes public, and delivered under pressure. You are evaluated in real time, we know that. Your body, your voice, your interpretation, all visible and subject to comment. And you are often very young when this whole thing begins. Young enough that the people giving feedback carry quite huge authority. Young enough that what they say does not just feel like professional guidance. It feels like information about who you are as a person, as a performer. When criticism comes at the wrong moment from someone with that level of authority, it can become what we call a formative experience. It's not just a memory that you can kind of access from time to time, or a lens. It becomes something that shapes how you see yourself, how you interpret feedback, how you respond to your own imperfection. For years afterwards, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people coming 15, 20, 30 years after the event to process that event when they realize that this is the event that has been running quietly in the background. Okay, so in my view, this really matters. And I think the performing arts would need to take it a bit more seriously. And I know that there is more awareness nowadays because We know that young performers need protection from criticism that is careless and that can affect their sense of self-worth. So when these experiences do happen, they need processing. We need help processing them, not just moving on, but we need to genuinely work through what that moment left behind in our system, in our nervous system, our body, our minds. If you recognize this in your own history, my free Imposter Type Quiz can help you understand what that critical voice is currently shaping in your specific pattern, because it often shows nowadays as feeling of imposterism. The link is in the description. It's completely free. It takes under 5 minutes to complete. What happens with these experiences when they are not processed is that the voice gets internalized. We stop noticing it came externally from someone else. We experience it as our own voice or our own judgment. The teacher's disappointment becomes our own sense of not being good enough. That conductor's public correction becomes the voice that arrives in the wings before every performance. And here is what I would like to say clearly. What happened in the past does not have to define you now. It does not have to run you. The voice formed in a specific context at a specific time in response to a real experience. That's what it is. But you are not 14 anymore, and I know you know it. And that voice is not the truth about you. So the question is, what really helps? If the image is strong and the voice is deeply, deeply embedded, working with a therapist using approaches like EMDR, eye movement desensitization therapy, or Brainspotting or something else, can be genuinely necessary. These are not just talking approaches. They work with how the memory is stored in the body, in your mind, in your nervous system. They can shift something that years of telling yourself to move on have not been able to shift. But there are also things you can try without a therapist. One of my favorite ones is distancing with a little bit of humor. So give that critic a name. Not a grand or serious name, but a slightly ridiculous one, or something that kind of speaks to that critic. So let's take me. If I were the disappointing teacher for you, I hope I would never speak to a student like that, but let's just imagine for a moment. You might call me Mean Maya, right? And my name is Maya, so I just chose adjective that starts with the same letter, Mean Maya. And then when the voice arrives, instead of engaging with it, I can say to myself, there is this mean Maya again. She doesn't matter in my life anymore. This sounds simple, and it is simple, but it works because it creates this psychological distance. The voice goes from feeling like the truth to feeling like a funny character, a known one, the one that you can recognize, you can name, and you can choose not to follow, just whatever, stay in the background. If you are carrying a voice that sounds like someone you knew once, back in the time when you were just learning to become a professional, I want you to say something directly. If you are carrying a voice that sounds like someone you once knew, I want you to say something directly. That person's disappointment was about their expectations, not about your worth. It speaks more to how they were as a person rather than you. You were young, you were trying, you deserved more care, more respect, more support than you received. This is the honest truth. And whatever that voice has been telling you since, you are allowed to question it. You are allowed to name it, to give it a ridiculous hat, and to send it to the back of the room. Okay, so this is the first episode of a new series I'm starting on the psychological wounds that shape performers. rejection, humiliation, criticism, and what we can do with what they left behind in us. Subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next episode. I'm Dr. Maja, and I will see you next time.